There are luxury brands that wealthy people quietly stopped buying 5 years ago, while middle-class shoppers are still saving for months to afford them. The ultra-rich moved on to brands you've never heard of, while everyone else is still fighting over logo handbags that scream, "I spent my entire paycheck on this." The gap between what actual wealthy people buy and what people trying to look wealthy buy has never been wider. If you're still buying these 15 brands, thinking they signal wealth, you're actually signaling the opposite. Here's what the truly rich stopped buying, and why middle-class aspiration is funding brands that wealthy people now consider tacky. 1. Gucci became the fast fashion of luxury. Gucci was the most sought-after luxury brand in 2017. Then they made a catastrophic decision. They expanded distribution to every major mall, department store, and outlet center. By 2019, you could buy Gucci at Nordstrom Rack for 40% off. The ultra-wealthy noticed and disappeared. Here's what happened. Gucci's revenue increased from $4.2 billion in 2015 to $9.6 billion in 2019. Sounds great until you realize they achieved it by making the brand accessible to everyone. The billionaire class watched Gucci become ubiquitous and did what they always do when something goes mainstream. They left. But here's the brutal tell. If you see someone wearing head-to-toe Gucci with the double G logo plastered everywhere, they're not wealthy. Wealthy people stopped buying obvious Gucci in 2018. The only people still buying it are those who think the logo itself communicates success. It doesn't. It communicates that you spent 3 months' salary on a handbag that rich people stopped carrying 2 years ago. The ultra-rich moved to Loro Piana, Brunello Cucinelli, and the Row, brands that cost more than Gucci, but have zero visible branding. If you don't know what they are, that's the point. Actual wealthy people want quality, not recognition from strangers. Louis Vuitton monogram is a middle-class trap. The Louis Vuitton monogram canvas, the brown bag with LV logos covering every square inch. This is the most recognized luxury pattern on earth. It's also what wealthy people abandoned a decade ago, while middle-class shoppers are still saving up for their first piece. The numbers tell the story. Louis Vuitton makes 30% of LVMH's total revenue. But here's what they don't advertise. That revenue comes almost entirely from entry-level monogram pieces sold to aspirational buyers. The truly wealthy buy LV leather goods without any visible branding. The monogram canvas isn't for them. It's for people who need strangers to know they own Louis Vuitton. Here's the class signal nobody talks about. When you carry a monogram LV bag, you're advertising that you saved for months to afford it. When you carry an unmarked leather LV bag that costs 3 times as much, you're signaling that price wasn't a consideration. One screams, "I finally made it." The other whispers, "I've always been here." Wealthy people didn't stop buying Louis Vuitton. They stopped buying the pieces designed to be recognized by people who can't afford Louis Vuitton. That's the entire monogram line. It exists to extract money from middle-class shoppers who think the logo equals status. 3. Michael Kors destroyed itself. With outlet stores. Michael Kors was positioned as accessible luxury in 2010. By 2015, it was sold at outlet malls for 60% off. By 2018, you could buy Michael Kors at TJ Maxx next to no-name brands. The brand committed suicide through distribution, and wealthy people watched it happen in real time. The financial collapse was spectacular. Michael Kors stock went from $98 per share in 2014 to $15 in 2019. Revenue dropped 10% year over year for 3 consecutive years. The brand became so devalued that they changed their corporate name to Capri Holdings to distance themselves from the damage. But here's who didn't notice. Middle-class shoppers who still see the MK logo as aspirational. They're buying handbags at outlets thinking they're getting deals on luxury. They're actually buying manufactured outlet merchandise that was never sold at full price. It's designed to look like the real thing while being made with cheaper materials specifically for outlet distribution. which means it was never actually luxury. It was middle-class aspiration packaged as something else. 4. Coach. Went from luxury to department store commodity. Coach was American luxury in the 1990s. Handbags were made in America, leather was premium, and the brand had exclusivity. Then they chased growth by opening stores in every mall and discounting constantly. By 2013, Coach products were 75% off at outlet stores year-round. The brand destroyed its own positioning. The market responded brutally. None of it worked because the fundamental problem remained. Coach trained customers to never pay full price by making discounts constant and deep. Here's the mathematical reality. If a Coach bag is marked $800 but available at outlets for $200 year-round, the real price is $200. The $800 price is fiction designed to make discount shoppers feel smart. Middle-class shoppers still buying Coach think they're being financially savvy getting deals. They're actually buying a brand that wealthy people stopped considering luxury 15 years ago. 5. Burberry's check pattern became a meme. The Burberry check. Tan, black, red, and white plaid that was synonymous with British luxury for a century. Then it appeared on everything from dog collars to baby strollers to baseball caps. By 2005, the pattern was so overexposed that British newspapers called it chav check after working-class youth adopted it. Wealthy people abandoned it immediately. Burberry's response took 15 years. They spent the 2010 Seth trying to de-emphasize the check pattern and focus on minimalist designs without obvious branding. By 2020, the check was barely visible in their collections. But the damage was done. The pattern that once signaled British aristocracy now signals working-class aspiration. But here's who still buys it. People who don't know the check became a class marker in the wrong direction. They see the pattern as timeless British luxury. Actual British upper class sees it as what working-class people wore in 2005. The cultural context shifted completely while aspirational buyers missed it. Wealthy people now buy Burberry pieces without the check or don't buy Burberry at all. The check isn't coming back, it's permanently associated with overbranding and mass market saturation. 6. Tiffany blue boxes lost their magic. Tiffany & Company built an empire on a blue box. The color was trademarked. Opening a Tiffany box was an experience that supposedly justified premium pricing. Then LVMH bought them for $16 billion in 2021 and immediately started mass marketing campaigns on social media. The exclusivity disappeared. Here's what changed. Tiffany used to be special occasion jewelry, engagement rings, anniversary gifts, milestone purchases. Now they're pushing $200 silver necklaces on Instagram ads targeting college students. The brand is chasing volume by moving down market, and wealthy buyers are noticing. But here's the tell that nobody talks about. When wealthy people buy engagement rings, they don't buy Tiffany anymore. They buy Harry Winston, Graf, or custom pieces from independent jewelers. Tiffany became the brand for people who want others to recognize the blue box. That's not wealth, that's performance. The middle class still sees Tiffany as the ultimate jewelry brand because the blue box still has cultural cash. Actual wealthy people know there are dozens of jewelers with better quality and no brand recognition. The difference is that wealthy people don't need strangers to recognize where their jewelry came from. 7. Ralph Lauren Polo became a licensing nightmare. Ralph Lauren built an empire on aspirational American preppy style. Then they licensed their name to anyone who would pay. Ralph Lauren fragrances, home goods, bedding, paint. By 2015, you could buy Ralph Lauren branded products at Home Goods and Marshalls. The brand lost control of its own image. The Polo Player logo specifically became worthless. It's on $12 t-shirts at outlet malls. It's on department store sale racks year-round. The logo that once signaled old money preppy style now signals middle market mass production. Wealthy people noticed and switched to brands that don't license their names to home goods companies. But here's the split that happened. Ralph Lauren has three tiers. Polo, which is mass market, Ralph Lauren Collection, which is actually luxury, and Purple Label, which is ultra premium. Wealthy people only buy Collection and Purple Label. Everything else is for people who want to say they're wearing Ralph Lauren without paying Ralph Lauren Collection prices. Middle-class shoppers buying Polo think they're buying into the Ralph Lauren lifestyle. They're buying licensed merchandise that shares a name with luxury products, but isn't made by the same people in the same factories with the same materials. 8. Prada nylon backpacks became basic. Prada's nylon bags were revolutionary in the 1980s. Using industrial material for luxury goods was subversive. The nylon backpack with the triangle logo was everywhere. The bags that once cost $1,200 were being faked so convincingly that authentication became impossible. Prada's response was telling. They've spent the last 5 years de-emphasizing nylon and pushing exotic leather goods with minimal branding. They know the nylon bags became too accessible, too copied, and too common. But middle-class buyers missed the memo. Here's what happened in wealthy circles. Prada nylon became the thing people bought in their 20s before they could afford real luxury. It was entry-level Prada. Then it became the thing people bought when they wanted to signal designer goods without spending designer money. Now it's what people buy when they don't know. Prada moved on. Wealthy buyers now purchase Prada leather goods or skip the brand entirely. The nylon bag with the triangle logo signals that you're trying to look wealthy using designs from 2010. 9. Versace Gold. Medusa is screaming new money. Versace's aesthetic is maximalist luxury. Gold hardware, Baroque patterns, Medusa logos. It's designed to be loud, obvious, and impossible to miss. This works for people who want to announce their wealth. It doesn't work for people who actually have it. Here's the class divide. New money loves Versace because it's expensive and everyone knows it's expensive. Old money avoids Versace because everyone knowing you spent money is vulgar. The entire brand is built on conspicuous consumption, which is the opposite of how generational wealth dresses. But here's the financial reality. Versace declared bankruptcy in 2018 and was sold to Capri Holdings for $2.1 billion. The brand wasn't profitable. The people buying Versace weren't buying enough to sustain the business. Middle-class shoppers see Versace as the ultimate luxury. Wealthy people see it as costume jewelry for people who need validation from strangers. The Medusa logo doesn't signal wealth. It signals insecurity about wealth. 10. Balenciaga Triple S sneakers became a joke. Balenciaga released the Triple S sneaker in 2017 for $850. They were intentionally ugly. Fashion insiders called it ironic luxury. For 2 years, wealthy people bought them as a statement piece. Then everyone bought them. By 2019, you couldn't walk through a mall without seeing fake triple sneakers. The irony became earnest, and the wealthy moved on. But here's what didn't change. Middle-class shoppers are still buying triple sneakers, thinking they're fashion-forward. They're wearing a trend that peaked 3 years ago. Wealthy people are now wearing Loro Piana cashmere sneakers that cost $1,400 and look like normal sneakers. The conspicuous ugliness was the trend. Subtle luxury replaced it. Balenciaga's entire business model relies on rapid trend cycles. They introduce something provocative. Wealthy people buy it for 6 months. Aspirational buyers buy it for 2 years. Then Balenciaga introduces the next provocative thing. If you're still buying Triple S sneakers in 2025, you're chasing a trend that wealthy people finished with in 2019. 11. Rolex became the watch for people who don't know watches. Rolex is the most recognized luxury watch brand. That's the problem. Wealthy watch collectors stopped buying Rolex sports models because they became too common. A Submariner or Daytona that once signaled serious money now signals you have $15,000 and no watch knowledge. Here's what happened in collector circles. Rolex sports watches became investment pieces for middle-class buyers trying to flip them. Wait lists at authorized dealers stretched to years. Gray market prices went 50% above retail. The secondary market became more accessible than buying new from Rolex directly. But here's what wealthy collectors did. They moved to Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin, and independent watchmakers, brands that cost more. And are harder to obtain and aren't recognized by anyone who doesn't know watches. A Patek Philippe Nautilus costs $100,000 and looks like a normal steel watch. That's the point. Middle-class buyers see Rolex as the pinnacle of watches. Wealthy collectors see it as entry-level luxury that everyone knows. When everyone recognizes your watch, it's not exclusive anymore. It's just expensive. 12. Canada Goose parkas are for tourists. Now Canada Goose parkas cost $1,500. They were designed for Arctic expeditions. Then they became fashion statements in cities where temperatures rarely drop below freezing. By 2018, every college campus had dozens of students wearing Canada Goose to walk between heated buildings. Here's what wealthy people noticed. The parkas became uniforms. When everyone in your social circle wears the same $1,500 jacket, it's not luxury. It's conformity. Wealthy people started buying Moncler, Loro Piana, or custom pieces that cost more and aren't instantly recognizable. But here's the cultural shift. Canada Goose became associated with international students, finance bros, and people trying to signal wealth through outerwear. The patches on the sleeves became class markers that said, "I have $1,500 to spend on a jacket." Actual wealthy people don't need to advertise jacket prices on their sleeves. Middle-class shoppers still buy Canada Goose, thinking it's premium. Wealthy people switch to brands that nobody recognizes because recognition was never the goal. 13. Balmain. Everything is costume jewelry. Balmain, under Olivier Rousteing, became famous for heavily embellished jackets covered in gold hardware and crystals. The aesthetic was opulent and expensive-looking. The brand was designed to look like wealth rather than be wealth. Here's the reality of Balmain's business. The brand loses money consistently. It survives through licensing deals and collaboration collections with H&M. The pieces that look expensive on Instagram are often costume jewelry quality at luxury prices. Wealthy people noticed immediately. But here's who didn't notice. Social media users who see Balmain on celebrities and assume it's high luxury. They're buying pieces designed to photograph well, not to last. The heavy embellishment and obvious branding signals new money trying to look old money while using new money aesthetics. Wealthy people buy clothing that will last decades. Balmain makes clothing that will look dated in 3 years. That's fast fashion at luxury prices. 14. Moschino became a parody of itself. Moschino, under Jeremy Scott, became famous for ironic luxury. Fast food logos on expensive clothing, pop culture references on designer pieces. It was initially clever commentary on consumer culture. Then it became what it was mocking. Here's what happened. The irony stopped being ironic. People started buying Moschino because they liked McDonald's logos on $800 t-shirts, not because they appreciated the satire. The brand became exactly what it was parodying, and wealthy buyers disappeared. But here's who still buys it. People who think wearing luxury brands with McDonald's logos is edgy. It's not edgy anymore. It's what everyone did in 2016. Wealthy people moved on to brands that take themselves seriously because the joke stopped being funny. Moschino exists for people who want to wear expensive clothing that looks like it's from H&M with designer logos added. That's not luxury. That's paying luxury prices for fast fashion aesthetics. 15. Fendi baguette bags made a comeback. Nobody asked for the Fendi baguette was iconic in the late 1990s, thanks to Sex and the City. Fendi tried to bring it back in 2019 with nostalgia marketing. Wealthy people weren't interested. They already owned baguettes in the 90s. They're not buying the same bag again 25 years later. Here's who bought them. Younger buyers who missed the original trend, and older buyers reliving their youth. Neither group represents current wealth. The bag screams, "I watched Sex and the City and want to recreate 1999. That's not timeless luxury. That's nostalgia merchandise. Wealthy people buy pieces that won't look dated in 5 years. Re-releasing a bag that was iconic 25 years ago doesn't make it current. It makes it a greatest hits collection for people who weren't there the first time. Why wealthy people abandon logo luxury. Here's the pattern across all 15 brands. They relied on logo recognition, became too accessible, and trained customers to seek validation through branded goods. This worked for decades when luxury was scarce. Now luxury is everywhere. No recognition and significantly higher prices. The brands wealthy people actually buy now. Loro Piana cashmere that costs $4,000 for a sweater with no visible branding. Brunello Cucinelli suits for $8,000 that look like normal suits. The Row handbags for $6,000 that nobody recognizes. These brands are more expensive than the logo brands. That's not a bug. That's the feature. But here's what middle-class shoppers miss. They're still chasing logos because logos communicate value to other people. Wealthy people stopped caring what other people think. They buy quality that only they notice. The shift from, "I want people to know I can afford this," to, "I want this because it's the best," is the shift from aspiration to actual wealth. If you're still buying any of these 15 brands thinking they signal status, you're signaling the opposite. You're signaling that you're chasing wealth markers from 5 years ago that wealthy people already abandoned. The truly wealthy move to brands you don't recognize. That's the entire point.